Hi guys, welcome to Fierce and Pretty, Honey here. And finally we're doing another episode to my Thoth Studies series. So if you've been following my channel for a longer time, I did a phase where I did a lot of videos about Thoth Studies, but then I needed to take a break. Because whenever we're talking about the Toth deck, the rabbit holes can get deep at times, and I thought that I needed a space to take a break and to just let all the knowledge sink in and to use it. So that doesn't mean I haven't been using the Toth, on the contrary, but I really needed to take some time to let it sink in. But why am I talking about Thoth Studies? Because the main focus of today is the new book by T.Susan Chang, The 36 Secrets. And if you look at the cover, we have Rider-Waite-Smith imagery here. So why are we talking about Thoth Studies? Stay tuned and I'll let you know. So actually, this book is almost exactly what I was hoping that I would have had earlier when I was trying to dig deeper into the decanic minors in the Toth Tarot. But at the time I didn't have any book of this type, but now I just received this yesterday. I haven't fully read it yet. I'm good way through almost, but after this weekend I'm sure I'm done for the first time reading this because I'm so excited about this book. But now I do have it, and I want to tell you guys about it because I think it's a really useful tool for also learning the Toth. Because when I was doing my decanic studies with Toth Tarot, I used to use all these tarot year wheels and things like that. I had to do a lot of my own research and make different type of own material to put these things in, and now I finally have a book that I can combine in my own studies, devoted only for the decanic minors, and I'm super excited. T.Susan Chang talks about the minors in this book, so from 2 to 10, and she also uses the Picatrix and Kabbalah there, and I actually have the same Picatrix that she says that she's most heavily using in that, and mine is the translation by John Michael Greer and Christopher Warnock. So it looks like this. And if we look into my Picatrix, here it starts to go through the phases of the signs. So the Picatrix on this part looks like this. But let's not focus on the Picatrix today. So first, when I got this book and I read the first chapters, and there it was already in the introduction and using this book part, when she states, T.Susan Chang, she states that this is not a Toth book, and that in this book Tzadi is the star, etc., etc. I felt a little sting in my heart and the first bit of annoyment, but then I got over that and started to read the book, and I was super excited when I got over that part. But the thing is that the book uses most of the time the Rider-Waite-Smith imagery. It also from time to time lends to T.Susan Chang's friends Emma Meline's decks, the Tabula Mundi and the Rosetta, which I love because these are Toth decks. And if you've ever listened to their podcast, because T.Susan Chang and Emma Moline have this amazing podcast, Fortune's Wheelhouse, which I've been listening a lot and a lot. So I think it's quite obvious that she would use Emma Moline's amazing cards also to illustrate her book. So that made me a bit happier to see those also in there. But why am I kind of criticizing a bit or I'm not criticizing as much. I'm finding it hard. If I think about thinking the planetary rulers and the decanic minors in Rider-Waite-Smith versus using them in Toth, I don't know, maybe I'm just too simple-minded, because we all know that in the Rider-Waite-Smith images, you don't have the obvious visible clues about those things as you do have in the Thoth deck. Because if we compare just the imagery, in the Rider-Waite-Smith 3 of Wands, we don't have anything telling us the fact that it is the Sun in Aries in this decan. But immediately when we look at Thoth cards, we do see them right before our eyes. Sun in Aries. And at least I love that Thoth tells me them. Of course, some people might find it a bit tricky with Thoth if they don't want to get involved in the astrology so much. But I do. And these markers here, the symbols, the glyphs of Sun and Aries, they made me question when I first started my journey with the Thoth. Said, what the fuck are these decans, and what does it mean to have a Sun in Aries? And I might imagine that people getting this book who use the Rider-Waite-Smith and maybe have never used the Toth might find it even a bit more trickier to actually remember those things. Because if we look at the same card in the Rider-Waite-Smith, we all know this. There's nothing there to remind us. And then you would just have to, when you look at this image, you should be thinking, yes, it's Sun in Aries, and then you think about the qualities of the Emperor there, and what it brings as the zodiacal major of Aries. And then you think about the Sun card, which is a bit more easier to remember, because the Rider-Waite-Smith cards, they don't even have the zodiacal symbols or anything astrological written in them. You might find the clues about seeing the rams in the Emperor card. I think that actually learning and remembering these things are a bit harder in the Rider-Waite-Smith system than in the Toth. Because when we look at the majors in the Toth, we always have the glyphs there. In the Emperor, we have the glyph for Aries. If we don't remember immediately, we do have these cheat sheets. And then we do have the Hebrew letters also, which we don't have in the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. Because this amazing book uses those things that I'm used to using with the Thoth system, like for example the wheel, the yearly zodiacal wheel of tarot, how each decan is formed and where all the zodiacal signs are and whatever. It uses that, but on top of that it also uses the Kabbalah, and those are things that are present all the time in the Thoth deck. But when we think about Rider-Waite-Smith, you would have to remember those connections. So why I'm saying all this is that I think that when Rider-Waite-Smith people get this book, and if it is their like first dive into these topics, because it very well could be. And if they are not familiar or haven't been using the Toth system, my tip is that getting just cheap, a mass market Toth deck could be worthwhile if you really want to study this topic of the decans and how they are playing there. It could help you to remember these combinations of the zodiacal major and then the planetary major that brings in the rulerships and qualities into the minor card, into that specific decan. So I used to do practices like this a lot when I was first studying the decans. And how I did those was that I always, that's one of my favorite practices when I started with tarot. I always shuffle the cards and then I started to divide them in piles. First I separated the majors, all the fire suits, and then cups, and then swords, and then pentacles, and then later on arranged them all in numerical order. That was a practice that I did a lot when I was just had nothing better to do. But the same thing I did when I started to read this book, because I really wanted to have a Thoth deck in my hands, because the images in the books are the Rider-Waite-Smith, and I really want to see also the Toth image. So what I did was I took out the elemental majors, so the Eon, the Hanged Man, and the Fool. We don't need them here. But then I also took away all the court cards. And if you're doing this just with a Rider-Waite-Smith deck, if you want to use a deck on top of already existing black and white Rider-Waite-Smith images in that book, you could do that. So just take out the aces, court cards, and the elemental majors. Then you put a different pile where you put the zodiacal and planetary majors. You can keep them because you always need, when you're looking into one decanic minor, you always need to have its planetary ruler and then the zodiacal major. Because if you're looking like Sun in Aries, for example, as we just said, then you get to have the Sun card and the Emperor card. And then you put the decanic minor in between, which in this case would be the Three of Wands. And then what you do is you organize all the suits from 2 to 10, first in their own piles. And then you start combining them to that pie chart. I can do that by memory now, how it goes, because we always start with Aries, which is the fire suit. We start with Aries, then we go to Taurus, which is the element of earth. Then comes Gemini, which is air, and then comes Cancer, which is water, and then we switch back to fire, earth, air, and water, and that's how it goes. And then you go in numeric order, so you get 3 cards from each element. Like here we have first all the decanic minors that connect to Aries and fire, then and because of that to fire. So we have 2 of Wands, 3 of Wands, and 4 of Wands. And then, because the zodiacal wheel jumps, we go to Taurus. And remember, here we have the number 4. So when we jump in to the earth suit of Taurus, we don't start with 2s now, but we jump to 5, 6, and 7. So these are the decanic minors that are linked to Taurus. And then we switch to Gemini, and of course naturally after number 7 comes number 8, and then we have the suit of swords, we have the 8 of Swords, 9 of Swords, and the 10 of Swords. And then when we jump to the first water suit, which is Cancer, then we start again, because now we reached 2 of Fire all the way up to the 10 of Air, 10 of Swords. So then when we jump into water, we start again with 2. And so it goes. But it's really easy if you haven't done it to check it on the wheel. But I think it's also good practice when you want to memorize and understand the whole pie chart, how it goes, how we have the cardinal, fixed and mutable elemental zodiacal signs, how they play out and how it all turns out to be. So I think that is a really fun practice also. So I think that if you're struggling with only the Rider-Waite-Smith imagery, try the Toth. Dip your toes into it. You might find it really useful, even though you might not like and connect with the Toth images. But you might like seeing the symbols in the minors very fast, very easily. And also, if you are not so familiar with the planetary and zodiacal cards in the majors, that's also easier in the Toth, because it's all there. Maybe I'm just simple enough to enjoy having it there, so I don't have to remember every detail. But overall, why also I suggest having one Toth deck is that T.Susan Chang uses the words or the card names, the names of the decanic minors that are the titles in the Toth deck. Because if you look at the 2 of Wands in the Toth deck, it is called Dominion. And then if we look at the book, you see that here also Lord of Dominion. So she chose to use the Toth titles for the card, and because they are a bit different than the names or the titles that the Golden Dawn they gave to these cards. So they are named very similarly in if you look like the book T, and there you see the titles of the cards. But T.Susan Chang chose to go with the words chosen by Crowley to the Toth deck. And for me, that was such a pleasure. I love that she decided to use the Toth titles. Because also, if you do not have, for example, the Toth deck, but you would have like the Tabula Mundi. So it's same case with this deck as with the Toth deck. Here you do have the Hebrew letters and the planetary glyphs or the zodiacal glyphs. And then you do also have in the Tabula Mundi, for example, the titles of the cards, which correspond with the Toth deck, but also with the titles used in this book. So technically, what is this book? It has like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pages per each minor. So quite a lot. And it speaks about how it comes to be and what it means to have the effect of Sun in Aries, for example. What it means, what qualities they bring in, and then she goes deeper into the astrology, like which planets rules what, and where they are exalted, where the planets are happy to be, in what places they are not so happy, even Sun can be unhappy, and Venus, even though they are the pleasant ones, they can be unhappy. But also the fiery, warlike Mars can be happy at some places. So it talks about those things. Then it has the references to Kabbalah and then to the Picatrix, where, you know, these faces were written out in like ages ago. Then there are poems, but also one fact that I love about, but this has lot to do about how brilliant T.Susan Chang is. She's the total opposite of me, because I'm the walking chaos, but she's so organized, and she does lists and collects data and really organized. So I love, even though I'm chaotic, but I love that whenever she talks about other cards and how they work, there's also attached pictures in. So you have no trouble of imagining all the cards all the time. So it makes the reading easier. And when she refers to things, there are pictures to help. And so if we are talking about one specific card in one chapter, if she talks about other cards and how they are connected and how they work, she really explains it out very well. Then she talks about overall meanings of that minor arcana card, but then she also adds her own experiences from mundane life, and I think that was really refreshing and fun. And there are these great little insights. For example, how she talks about the Three of Wands, which actually has been stalking me a lot lately, and I loved how she wrote it out of the Three of Wands, that I have often found this card to indicate a wait, but a wait for ripening rather than, say, the frustration caused by snagged cogs of the Eight of Swords. This fruitful awaiting, this hopeful expectation reminds me of what it's like to engage in magical art and then stand ready for its successful outcome without forcing the process, without lust of result. You know, these beautiful kind of mental images that she uses, I find really, really pleasant. And one good example that I wanted to show you guys in this book, for example, are, you know, charts like this, where she has this daily draw practice where she draws card, but she has made statistics of how many times in a year she has taken out or drawn up which card. And she has all the cards and how many times she pulled them out in a deck for a year. I could never imagine me doing that. But that's fucking fantastic. That's marvelous data. So that just shows how deep she goes and how wonderful brain she must have to be able to work like this. And then she has these like examples that actually happened to her that are kind of magical. For example, when she first ever card she lost from a tarot deck was the Five of Pentacles, and the card is titled Worry, if you look at the Thoth system. So this is the Toth card of Worry, and we all know the Five of Pentacles in the Rider-Waite-Smith, where the two people are walking behind the church window and are left outside. So she told us the story when she lost the card, the Five of Pentacles or Five of Disc, and it flew out from a table to the ocean. So technically, her worries flied away, and then when she got back from that work trip, she found out she was pregnant. So to me, at least, that's freaking powerful when the worries fly away, and then something like that happens. So those are just little highlights that I love reading in this book. And I love the fact that this book is based to tarot, talking about tarot, because the other book that I've been dying to get, that also T.Susan Chang refers in this book, is Austin Coppock's 36 Faces. So this is 36 Secrets, but that's 36 Faces, and that's more that's an astrological book, but it has been sold out forever, and I'm hoping that the second print from that book actually will come out this year, because I've been dying to get that book to go deeper in my astrology studies. But I think that reading this and then reading that will complement each other perfectly, and they will boost my knowledge both in astrology but also in tarot. So that's why this book, for me at least, is an essential new tool in my Thoth studies. That if you have a Thoth deck at hand and then you have this book, it is kind of a perfect set to work with. And I will also link my first video when I talked about how I studied the decans, I don't know, several months ago. I will link that down below and also at the end of this video. So if you want to go and check my older Thoth Studies series, so that's there. But at least I can highly recommend this book. No matter if you're a Rider-Waite-Smith reader or a Thoth reader, works for both. But my personal opinion only is that doing all this with Pixi's images might be harder. It might require more brain capacity than with Thoth, where everything is nicely put for us to see and read. So we don't have to remember everything by heart when we do this. So if you have any questions on this book, let me know down below. If you have read it, I would love to hear what your thoughts are, because I've seen this book a lot in the internet, in different groups, in Facebook and everywhere. So many people have already read it, and I would love to hear, if you are a Rider-Waite-Smith person, that how it feels, because I think that for Thoth people this might be a bit more obvious, but how does it feel to a Rider-Waite-Smith based reader who's not at all familiar with the Thoth? Because I do both, but how does it feel to study that book, and does it feel really easy to remember and to learn and to understand the book without having knowledge on the Thoth deck? I would love to hear. Until next time, bye guys!